when I was learning all about sound therapy and long distance healing. I studied Reiki and I also studied polarity therapy. I have integrated all three, actually, sound, Reiki, and polarity. And I'll just give this example. There is this healer that you can book a session with. And I don't remember his name. I don't remember where he is, but I just know of the story of this guy. You can book a session with him in person. You go and you lay on the table and you're waiting your session. And he says, "Thank you for coming," and he goes in the other room. And this is a huge example of the long distance effect. He works with the person in the other room because the energetic body is a lot it's a lot less cumbersome than the physical at times. And so he feels, and I feel this as well when I do long distance work, you can just get right in there and support and work with the body and the spirit and the energetic body directly and speak to it and ask questions. And so I had to make a pact with my body. Okay, my pact with you is this: I will go to bed early tonight. Can I support you in this moment, that in the way that I can, even though I can't go sleep? And I think these kind of quiet conversations are what we need as individuals on this whole planet.
Hello there, folks. I'm Sifu Slim, and if you'd be so kind, take a quick moment, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, and if you'd like to consider subscribing, you can do that down below. We welcome your helpful, authentic comments. We're tackling a subject here that is near and dear to most of us. It's a subject of too much information, overstimulus. Some people call it issue fatigue. So as we ground ourselves, I have my bare feet right now touching the ground. As we ground ourselves like the native people have done for millennia and hundreds of thousands of millennia, we want to ground not just our feet through our body, through our physiology, but the busyness of the images, the sound, the stimulation, the thoughts that are coming into us. We want to ground those with some alertness, sure, with some peace. Hallelujah. We welcome that. So today I'm going to bring in someone who's had experience thinking, talking, coaching on this subject. And she's down in Arizona, and she can tell us a little bit about herself. She's known as the Earth Mama. Her name is Jackie Olmstead, artist, coach, and healer in Phoenix. Jackie, I'm Sifu. Say hello to the audience.
Sifu, it's so wonderful to meet you. It's wonderful to be on your podcast as well. And I thank you so much for asking me. And I love what you're doing, the work that you're doing here. Yes, so I live in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And I absolutely agree with you that it's so important to continue to return to our roots of grounding to the earth, which is another reason why it's part of my name, because it is just part of who I am. And I was pondering this topic, especially this past couple day or two here, so that I could remind myself, along with your people, what it takes to help us remind ourselves what we need to do to get back to Mother Earth.
And I saw in your one of your specialty areas is the worn out mom, helping support that mom with all the busy tasks that she has to do. There are a lot of single moms out there, unfortunately, this day and age. I was thinking back to when I was in junior high school. We had in my group of circle of friends, out of 100 some kids in the eighth grade, in my circle, my core group of people in my neighborhood, we had one friend of mine and his brother who had a single mom, never met the dead, didn't even want to ask about the dead. It was so uncommon. So what's going on now with moms and being single moms or females on their own, men on their own, of course, too, and how they can come home at the end of the day and be all alone? What's going on with all of that, Jackie?
That's a very big topic, and I think it's a great one to discuss. And think that it is a movement in making sure that we take care of ourselves as adults, as moms, as women, um, besides being a parent. So, and my choice at the time, back in 2012, was to leave the relationship with my daughter and to choose to do things separately. And that was for my own mental health. It was not an easy choice, just like anyone I know. And some of us, I find it wasn't their choice. It was actually the other significant other's choice. And Sifu, I don't know why. I don't know why, if how much, I don't know the statistics right now. And I'm also finding an interesting connection with single fathers as far as asking them what their experience is also in this process. And interestingly, I think one of the ironic things, I don't want to say ironic, but it's an interesting thing that I've reflected on this week was actually grounding for myself and calming my brain. A lot of it has to do with remembering and regrouping with my daughter and being the mom, and because they are literally part of us. And so when we can hone in and listen and remember that that is, I'll speak for myself, my primary job is being a mom. And so when I focus on her and talk to her and reflect with her, I all of a sudden can get much more calm and remember. And yes, it's obviously challenging to be a parent, and it is one of the tools that I use to get regrounded, is actually to reconnect with my daughter, ask her how she's doing. What challenges in like talking to her, what do you have going on, honey? Well, how can I help you? I want to be there for you as best I can. Will you talk to me if you have questions? And it's that core part of myself that wants to make sure everything is kosher, everything is copacetic, all the words that and so that I know of taking care of the things that are right around me. And then I can also reflect on myself. And as a woman, what do I need? What is it that I need to make sure that I'm calm and grounded and can be present for everybody else around me? It's an interesting balance. What do you think, Sifu?
The idea of the mother goddess and her being enabled to do what she is so good at doing, the nurturing, the listening skills, the calming skills, all those things are consummate with the historic role of that earth mama, that mother goddess that's connected to the earth. Fathers can do some of those skills as well. Men can do some of those skills as well. But historically, the mother, I think, has more patience, and I think that's innate. I think we can all learn more patience, but the idea of that mother, with maybe one daughter or a few kids and then a few more kids being in there, I could just see the mom reaching around and pulling that together. And, the father, man, creating the safe space and allowing, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's better than enabling, providing the structure, providing the peace, maybe providing some of the food so that that core group of mom and like the mom dog with her pups. Look at all that time that the mom dog spends with those pups, on the teat, and licking them, moving them around. And cats, they grab them on the back of the neck. So there's all these things that if the mom has some peace and some support, that's the word I was looking for, some support, to use those innate abilities and then have other women in that group. In the farming family, it might have been an aunt, older sister, neighbor, those types of things. In the hunting and gathering tribe, it was all women from the 12-year-old all the way up to the ancients in that tribe. They're working as a team with that very challenging task, which are the children who can easily get into trouble, easily wander away, easily get swiped by another animal, those types of things. And so I think it's wonderful to have that motherly instinct and motherly ability supported.
Mm. I love all of the metaphors that you're using there because I think it is also returning to our core behaviors, our core needs. And I think that I mean, the reason that we're separating, well, and I can speak mostly, of course, about myself, but I think it's rediscovering what it is that I bring to this planet for how I serve humanity and am I with the partner that is supporting me in that? And unfortunately, it wasn't with that particular partner, but I have to say, to be perfectly honest, I have observed him after the fact. Of course, it was extremely emotional and traumatic back then, but after the fact, and now 13 years later, I can say that I think it helped him grow as a father. And I can't speak for him growing as a man because that's his world, but I've observed him develop skills that I don't think would have happened if I hadn't have left. It's a very unfortunate thing, but I do know that he is, like you were talking about, he is actually providing that support, that stability, that love as a father parent figure very well because we're separated. And he's doing what he needs to do. And I know that she adores him. And I feel like we have a good balance now. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting phenomenon in the father mother figure and how we raise our kids now. So I feel like we have maybe the second best option, which is me and he and I are amicable now. And she is being fully supported by her father, which is excellent. I'm so grateful because it could very well not be the situation. And unfortunately, that there's a lot of things not happening well for kids out there with the single parent syndrome. But so I do support other moms who are single in any way that I can. I ask them, hey, do you need me to come over and just clean your house for a little bit with you? Let's go have coffee so that you can have a mental break. Um, you know, I just ask questions, and I think asking questions is the best way to find out, even with ourselves, what is it that I need today? What do I
Mm.
need in this exact moment? And for example, yesterday, I was really exhausted physically. And so I was asking my body, what do you need? What do you need? And my body just kept saying, I need to sleep. And in this day, you know, in age where, I do work and have things happen during the day that I schedule. And so I had to make a pact with my body. Okay, my pact with you is this. I will go to bed early tonight. Can I support you in this moment that in the way that I can, even though I can't go sleep? And I think these kind of quiet conversations are what we need as individuals on this whole planet is need to hear our own selves to know what will help us the most. And that's what I use in my healing work is let's hear our bodies from the core. What is it that we can do to support ourselves in this moment so that we can heal, we can move forward with whatever it is the body's needing.
Wonderful, Jackie. I have a clip about stress hormones and the genome differences. Robert Sapolsky, a renowned professor at Stanford, best-selling author, highly intellectual and scientific person who knows quite a bit about this subject. So I'm going to play a little bit. You won't be able to see it, but you'll be
Okay.
able to you'll be able to hear it. So I'll play that, and then we'll put the live video in the final edit. And this is at 16 49 of the Sapolsky video called Stressed Addicts, Genome Differences, Metaphor, Diet. Here we go.
Okay, next, Claudia from Romania asks, can you become addicted to stress hormones?
Yes. Okay, we're almost a century into the concept of stress being bad for your health. Stress damages this, damages that, accelerates brain aging, does everything bad. And thus it's easy to reach the conclusion that stress is uniformly bad for you. And all you need to do is reflect a little bit and realize, no, there's some types of stress that are not aversive. And in fact, we love them. We love them. We pay good money to be stressed in just the right way. What is it about good stress that has the potential to become addictive? Okay, you have this concept we've had before, the inverted U. Here is the amount of stress which is perfect. It makes you alert. It makes you happy. It's stimulating. It's stimulating. And what you see is showing this inverted U, too little of this type of stress, and you're bored. Too much, and you're adversely stressed. Getting an optimal up there. Certain characteristics of what type of stress wind up being optimal. What is it that makes stress appealing? It's not too severe. It doesn't go on for too long. It's with an overall setting of feeling safe. And that's
So there we have Robert Sapolsky. Jackie, do you have any thoughts on that type of balance of stress?
It's so true. My reflections on that would be for sure that I do think that we seek comfort in that which is a feeling of normality with what we were raised with, what feels normal and comfortable. For example, I was talking about this last night at dinner. My parents moved on the average of every 10 months growing up, and so the stressor in my life was moving and the normal feeling. I thought that was normal. I just thought, oh well, you just don't put everything out. You just keep it in boxes. And then you move again. And so I learned a lot from it. I have a great adaptability skill. And then at the same time, where's the balance of coming to a point of, well, actually, this is not a positive thing anymore. Actually, this is now a stressful feeling. Now I feel anxiety if I don't move. So it's an interesting reflection on, well, what's normal stress? What's abnormal stress? And I liked hearing about the balance. Like, where is the middle part with it? Good stress, too much stress, where we're taxing ourselves. For example, when we go to bed, I know a lot of people have this trouble where they're going to bed, and I sometimes have this where it's just going la, 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 like they talk about it like the meeting room. We need to adjourn the meeting room now. It's bedtime. And so I think that's the indication that we've crossed that threshold of too much. We've taken on too much of that stress, whether we're addicted to it or not as well. What do you think, Sifu, about that? About all of these things?
Yeah, the idea of being a couch potato, computer potato, video game person that just kind of shuts down and lets all of the digital world and connection through the internet do their stimulation for them, I think is the weak standpoint. And I think that will compress our physiology, compress our mind, and it will leave us unprepared for the world that is outside of our home. And I think that's where we need to be spending most of our time, and also communicating with others face to face, in group settings, all these types of things, and not shutting down, not looking away from people, being quote unquote neighborly as they said, being amicable to people, greeting them. All these things are historic parts of humanity, and I think a lot of that has been quieted down, and some people now live in fear of other people in the world outside their computer, their phone, and their digital world. What do you think about that, Jackie? Hi, this is Sifu Slim, author of The Aging Athlete. In this book, you're going to get to hear about two different groups of former high-performance athletes. One group, which is made up of 90% of the former athletes, does not do physical activity on a regular basis and tends to suffer the consequences of a sedentary lifestyle. The other group, which is made up of 10% of the former athletes, is doing physical activity on a regular basis and tends to thrive through the aging process, or at least has a better chance at coping with the aging process. We could have taken these folks to a lab and done all kinds of tests on them. Instead, we slowed them down and sat them down and asked them, in their own words, to describe why they're wired the way they are, so that we all, former athletes and non-athletes, can use some of their inspirational and motivational and mindset lessons in our own lives. I hope you pick up a copy today. You can go to theagingathlete.com. And when you have a chance to read it, I'd love to hear back from you to find out what your thoughts are on the stories of these aging athletes.
Thousand percent. Yes, Sifu. I think that especially because of the lockdowns, I think we're still rippling all of these sentiments about reconvening with humanity, with each other, and hey, let's get together for coffee sometime. I think that it can be easy, even when you live in the same city, to just say, well, let's just do a Zoom call. Well, but I think that if we can choose the in-person method, and maybe even choose a place where we've never been. Let's go check out that lake, that one over there, and let's go sit and have some coffee over or tea or whatever it is. Um, Instead, and I think the biggest thing is the discipline, is actually taking discipline for ourselves, for making the choices of what actually will help us grow and feel so much better. But it's I think that our brains forget. And that is why, for example, I have like a mantra, like a thing that I do at night. I'm reminding myself, okay, now it's bedtime. It's bedtime now. It's time to, and I will use counting, I will use prayer and things like that at bedtime to remind myself it's now time to shut off the outside stimulus from the day, so that I can then remember that actually the normal is for me to go to sleep at this hour. But I do believe that we crave, whether or not we acknowledge it, we do crave the in-person interactions, and it's certainly things like this is better than none at all. So I also support definitely having Zoom calls if you're not having any type of interaction at all. This is a really great way to connect and energetically exchange 100%. And so we have levels of the connections. We have the levels of how much are we connecting to ourselves and to other people. And hopefully I haven't deviated from your question too much. What do you think?
No, I think, Jackie, your point about a Zoom call is definitely better than nothing. I get a charge when I interact with people about a subject. So we got to know you a little bit. We're getting to know this idea of single momhood and the support system, or now we're talking about too much information and stress. Just this hour of engagement with you gives me a charge for today and several days following it. And then I have a little project to edit this together with some video and perhaps some images and some graphics. So it's a really nice little project that was sparked by our wanting to get together online here today and share a moment.
Oh, I wanted to share something that, and I will find it and send it to you as well. When I was taking sound therapy, when I was learning all about sound therapy and long distance healing, because I studied Reiki and I also studied polarity therapy, I have integrated all three, actually, sound, Reiki, and polarity. And there's actually, and I'll just give this example. There is this healer that you can book a session with. And I don't remember his name. I don't remember where he is, but I just know of the story of this guy. You can book a session with him in person. You go and you lay on the table and you're waiting your session, and he says, "Thank you for coming," and he goes in the other room. And this is a huge example of the long distance effect. He works with the person in the other room because the energetic body is a lot, it's a lot less cumbersome than the physical at times. And so he feels, and I feel this as well when I do long distance work, you can just get right in there and support and work with the body and the spirit and the energetic body directly and speak to it and ask questions. And so I wanted to give that as it is an interesting opposite to saying we need to go out to nature because we need that too. I think maybe it's the mind body connection and then it's also the body earth connection. So that both, it's like the polarities of earth and spirit and having us be the middle ground. So but it's reminding me of this chart though I wanted to say of the fact that we can't ever get rid of stress. And I think that's what the audio that you played is alluding to, that we're always going to have stress. Some of it's actually positive stress. When we have a baby, you're in stress, but it's a beautiful, positive type of stress. And we grow from all of the stressors. And at the same time, when someone passes away, that's stressful. When we get a new job, when we, all of these different levels of stressors. And I think that it's continually checking into ourselves of what is too much, and I think also, like you're saying, the the external stimulus or of allowing, for example, the gaming and things like that. And I've been in that world where even especially during the lockdowns, it was easy to kind of just slip into that mind numbing space. And where's the balance here? At the time, there was no balance. It was not balanced for me. Oh, sorry about that. And so, we have determined that what it is that is helping us versus hindering us. And I think, Sifu, what is your guidance on that? How do you counsel others with that type of questions? When they have, would say, how do we determine then what's too much?
Too much in terms of stimulus.
Yes, and how can, because they say, well, but this is fun for me. How do I determine when it's too much, or what if I just want to
Sure.
relax?
Well, I think one thing you can do, you can look at the tightness of your physiology. If
Mm.
you look far less like Tarzan and Jane and you look more like a snowman, that's one way. Or if you're a thin person like I am and you're below the age of 75 and you have no muscle tone and you have inability to walk with some structure and some support, then I would say that you've got something going on that's preventing you from using the body. So you want to use everything, mind, body, spirit, and I even throw in karma, and there's more things you can throw in after that, human interaction, all these things. I know people who've lived on a street for a long time don't know their neighbors. This to me is not a positive. Let's say there was a crisis, a fire coming through, or some other calamity, and you needed to cooperate, share news, share assistance, these types of things. Wouldn't it be helpful, Jackie, if we all knew our neighbors like 20, 30 years ago?
Oh, 100% agree. The whole porch sitting community world that we used to live in, we'd go sit on our porches and people would walk by, hey John, hey Mary. uh I love that. I think
Yeah.
that I do love that myself. And where I live now, I do know all my neighbors. I made a point to get to know them a little bit, and even I actually have their phone numbers so that when things happen or I have questions or questionable things going on, I can call them and say, hey, by the way, is that um is that something that's happening? Is that a Do you know? And it really has a feeling of comfort in knowing that my community space, my home community space, is feels safer because I've created that sense of, well, we call it community, and care for each other. For example, a week or so ago, our electricity went out in the entire neighborhood. And here, when it's 110 outside, um, we definitely want to make sure we are all safe. I have some older folks that live across from me, so I went after work, or excuse me, during the day. When I was at work, I came home to check on them, and I just knocked on their door, and I said, I just want to make sure you're okay because I know that electricity is out. Things like that make me feel really happy. And some people might not be in that role. They might be just in the receiving mode of being allowed to, allow others to look out for them. I like to go out and go make sure they're okay. And of course, I appreciate when they want to reach out to me. So I think, yes, 100%. If we can support each other in communities, especially the people around us, they, I think that we have the tendency to think that our neighbors don't want to know us. I think that's the one of the biggest misconceptions. I've fallen into that myself, where I have had a neighbor that moved in about a year ago, and I didn't go say hello, but one time she was walking by, and I said, "By the way, hi, I'm Jackie. Wanted to just meet you and make sure if you need anything, just come knock on my door. Here's my number." Because I think that, and then there was a part of me that felt like maybe she didn't want to know me, and she was so happy to just have heard a hello and I'm your neighbor. Do you need anything? And if there's anything that comes up, let me know, as opposed to, for example, calling the police or something like that. Just, yeah, let's talk directly. It does, I think, goes a million miles to reach out. And it sounds easy. I know a lot of people might think that it's not easy. And I think at first we feel like the people don't want to get to know us or even be known themselves. I think it's like, I want to say to people, like, let's change things. Let's just mix it up. Why don't we try things like that? Let's get back to our roots of, yeah, let's get to know the people around us, even if they're here only a couple months, and let's just see what it's all about. Where are they from? Like, for example, Sifu, you're in a place that I've never gone to, and I think that's amazing that you're traveling, and love to hear more about what you're doing as well.
Sure, sure.
That's wonderful.
I'll share that in a moment. So I wanted to, Jackie, play another clip. I have this one and then two more I wanted to play to bring in some experts and see if we could comment on that. So one of the things that I keep hearing a lot about is trauma and how we're wound up, energetically, and then with trauma. For many of us, being wound up is normal. So here's an anesthesiologist who discusses the limbic system and dopamine and trauma and overstimulation. And he's an anesthesiologist. He's got a ketamine clinic. And so that's a drug. And he treats people with chronic stress, trauma, exposure to certain substances, and all the negative consequences, anxiety, depression, increased risk of developing mental health disorders. So his name is Dr. Kaveh, K-A-V-E-H, and his video is called The Limbic System, Dopamine, Trauma, and Overstimulation. And I'm going to start at 2 minutes and 50 seconds. We'll hear what he has to say in his laboratory setting and surgical setting.
Concepts apply to different psychedelics as well. So remember that first and foremost, when someone's coming to me for surgery, for ketamine, the limbic system is usually very, very wound up. When we have early stressors as a child, adverse childhood experiences, or any other type of traumatic experience, this winds up the parts of our brain that regulate our emotions and our behaviors later in life. The more wound up they are from early traumas, not just sexual traumas or physical traumas, but even seeing traumas in other people, can cause unregulated anxiety, major depression, PTSD, etc., which unmasks, as you know, under anesthesia, and can be worsened, what we might call medical trauma, or can be healed, like a healing experience. Remember, when someone comes in the OR with me, I don't want to just fix their body. I want to try to heal their mind as much as possible, and at the very least, not fix the body and break the mind in the process. So a really good question in here from Michaela. What do you do when someone is having a bad trip? Michaela, this is so important to any psychedelic journey, and the number one thing to do is to prevent it from happening. That's why I talk with patients very carefully as we prepare for anesthesia or any other type of psychedelic experience. Number two is to have the trust, which is what all the empathogens also help foster, that we'll talk about, and also knowing that they can just trust their doctor. The more you can trust, the greater the therapeutic alliance, the greater you can help guide someone out of a bad trip if they fall into a K-hole or somewhere else, for example.
So I wanted to share that because you hear people who are severely depressed and maybe contemplating suicide. And one of the first things you see is they get people in a group therapy session. So that's a very helpful thing for many people. But what if it's a biochemical thing that's causing these things? And as we see with when they do tests on people who are criminals, we often see that the sociopaths or the psychopaths have something like a cancer or some type of growth pressing on an area of their brain that's causing this behavior. So knowing the neurology, knowing the biochemistry is something that is really coming of age, and it's being talked about in relationship to some things that people a few generations ago just thought was normal life stuff. Over to you, Jackie, for your thoughts.
The first thing that I did hear in the recording was the trust with the doctors. And when it comes to anesthesiology, I think that it's absolutely crucial to have that trust. And I'll speak for I've had to have some minor surgeries myself in the past. I don't know if this relates, but I do want to just speak to it because it did come to my mind where I didn't 100% fully trust the doctor, I have to say. And I don't know why exactly with this particular, but while they were putting me under, I started panicking and I kept saying, wait, I'm not ready to go under yet. I'm not ready. And they just said, well, we need to take you in right now. And I just said, just give me 1 minute, please. And they didn't listen. And so I felt like that was not okay. I feel that it's important for the doctor to at least take that moment. And I think he talked about that, the psychology and the mental wellness and the feeling of stability when you're working with the doctor, especially with anesthesia and trauma that goes on with surgery. But, I think that would just be something maybe that I can in the future if, God willing that I don't need surgery again of any kind, but to address that with a physician. But now back to the physical. What was it that I could address? It was the healing work when it relates to people who are having physical reasons for their depression. If it's that, then I actually found that I did not realize that we can be very much set into a chemically induced depression because of other medical reasons. And I had that because of the original diagnosis of celiac disease. And then from that, I got anemic, severe anemic. And then as a domino effect, I actually was clinically depressed. And I did not know that it could have been resulting from the fact of the anemia. And so, long story short, with that journey was that actually, when I was able to heal my gut, or at least the beginning of healing my gut, it helped to put the dominoes back in the opposite order. And so I didn't need to go on antidepressants at all, thank goodness, but I have been on them in the past that helped during certain times. So I think that the main response I could have to that is yes, we need to treat the body as a whole. And I think that if we're having these major external psychological problems because of not addressing the physical, that's really alarming. It's alarming, and also, to be honest, I think actually it's very encouraging because we have a reason. It's like looking for, why is this happening? Actually, look, this is happening. And maybe it's the connecting of all of it that is what we can use to help people heal even more.
Wonderful, Jackie. If I can jump in, there's one other topic that I wanted to share, and that is social media and the quick response social media, things like Instagram and Snapchat, anything that lights up our phone with a sound or with a vibration, or a light maybe on maybe an email flashes by or a text flashes by. These things are addicting, very addicting pieces of stimulus. And here's an actor whose name is Tom Holland, and he's a young guy. Looks like he's in his early 30s. And he says this is why he got off Instagram. We'll hear what he has to say about that.
I decided to delete my Instagram. I would be on set working. I'd come and sit in my chair and just scroll. It was becoming a problem. I was just obsessed with it, and I was obsessed to find out what they thought about me. So I decided to make an announcement and say that I'm taking a break from social media. And the thing that really upset me is the press ran with that, and they tried to make out I was having this mental breakdown. They took the story in the wrong direction. Oh, look, he's not the perfect happy-go-lucky kid you think he is. He's having a nervous breakdown in New York. Kind of painted people looking for help in the wrong.
He might be in his 20s, so well known, I would imagine, to people who follow the shows, the programs that he's on. But you know, the media is always trying to get us impulsively to follow some narrative, and so he's complaining that he just wanted to delete his Instagram account, and then the media picked up on that and ran with the story about how he was depressed and not functioning properly. So over to you, Jackie, for your thoughts.
Wow. Well, yeah, definitely shows the power of the media and what they can do, and certainly the addictive properties of social media. I fully 100% agree, and I'm on a lot of the social media platforms myself, and definitely feel the effects of the overstimulus. Absolutely, 100%. And I find myself saying out loud, even to my daughter, well, I use it for my business, so I need to be on here. And I think that it's a really excellent reminder for me to remember, actually, why am I on there? I mean, I am reaching people. To my ultimate goal is to help people and to introduce them to the healing work that I do. And at the same time, I need to remind myself, I need to keep the focus, remembering that I need to keep my own sanity also. It is just it actually the media can be and is quite toxic, which is, by the way, why I don't watch TV. I don't watch TV itself in probably since 2007, 2008, 2006. But I will watch movies, I will watch YouTube videos and things like that. And then here's the question, how much of that creeps in anyway, even though I don't officially watch TV, because now I've got, all the social media things in front of me too. So.
Yeah, the idea that we're supposed to be able to keep up with all those things, and then be knowledgeable about what's going on in the current political spectrum. You didn't, somebody will say, you didn't hear what happened in the Middle East yesterday or in Ukraine last week. And I'll often say, no, I don't follow that stuff. I hear about it through other people. I watch the recaps, but I don't follow it on an hourly or daily or even weekly sometimes basis. And the people who do sometimes get offended that I don't. But I say, well, I just read this book. My goal is always to read about a book a week, and if they're a bigger book, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So that's part of my homework, and that makes me, stay on my game with reading and thinking. And then I write books, so I have to spend a lot of time writing, researching, and editing those books. So if I were to follow politics, the movie industry, the latest hot show, the Netflix series that's out right now, all these things, I wouldn't have time. So to be a balanced person who's trying to keep some of his emotional IQ and intellectual IQ in balance and continuing to develop, I have to say no to certain things. And I think the idea of staying up on everything doesn't help us, and certainly doesn't help me.
Sifu, that is so wonderful. That is an amazing space to be in. It reminds me of, I mean, if we think about it, even just 100 years ago, we were doing that more. I mean, we didn't have all of this. So the idea of making sure to take care of ourselves, and you're taking care of yourself, and the reading and the writing is so nurturing and is so healing for the brain. And I think I also get questioned myself a lot of times. People will ask me, well, didn't you see the thing? And I will say, no. You know what? Honestly, I'm taking care of my family first. And then yes, like you're saying, to watch the recaps, then I can decide for myself. And I'll watch if I do really want to look into it, I will look at it from several angles, different sources, so that I can decide for myself and not be influenced. It's hard to not be 100% influenced, but to make up my own mind, though, and a lot of times the making up of my mind is I'm just going to be here to observe and to see what happens. Let's see what happens. And I check in with people. Are you okay? I'm okay. Are you okay? We're okay. Okay. So, and I'll say to my daughter, I'm not in charge of that country. I'm not in charge of this country. I might have a say in how I feel about things, but I'm also not in charge. And I'm going to leave it to the people. That's their job. And my job is to take care of you, my daughter. I tell her, my job is this. And if I can stay focused on that, and yes, like you, I also make sure to take time to read. And I don't have a certain set goal right now, but oh my gosh, the reading is so nurturing to my mind. And I love that you reminded us all of that, because it is a huge superpower to make sure we keep reading.
The reading is a hobby for me, and if you go back a few generations, it was a luxury. Now for us, we see it as a labor, but I don't. I still see it as a luxury, as a gift. And someone took their time to put those thoughts down, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and editors went in and they sent it back to the author, and then the author did it over and over until finally they've got something they think is market ready, and they release it. And then there's things going on in that author's life at the same time. Sometimes, you watch an interview with that author and they'll talk about why they wrote that book and what was going on in their life. All that stuff to me is fascinating. And so that's a hobby. And the next video clip I want to show you talks about the idea of having a hobby, taking a walk, watering a plant, petting a dog. We often start doom scrolling. That's a new word, but I like it. Doom scrolling, because we need a quick break. And this is Dr. Andrew Huberman. He's got a huge following on the internet the last 10 or 15 years. He discusses social media and dopamine. And he's got the Huberman Lab, and he's operating out of Stanford in California. And this is on Chris Williamson's podcast, and the video is called The Unconscious Loop That Drains Your Excitement for Life. Dr. Huberman will hear what he has to say about this subject.
Question. We often hear that, that social media getting dopamine hit after dopamine hit. When we first get on social media for the first time or after a long period of time, the amount of dopamine that's released we think is quite substantial. It's novel. Remember, dopamine is about novelty, surprise, and the sense that we are on some exciting track. That's what dopamine is really about. It puts us into states of readiness, anticipation, looking, seeking, etc., almost always for things outside the confines of our skin. Just to contrast it maybe for a bit more of a future discussion, serotonin does the opposite. When there's a lot of serotonin in our brain and body, typically it makes us feel satisfied, sated, and more quiescent, comfortable with what we have in our own immediate sphere and within us, right? The comfort of a good meal, the food you have. Dopamine is about go, go, go. If you look at somebody who's high on cocaine or methamphetamine, it's all about pursuit, because that's a very dopaminergic drug. You look at somebody who's taken a drug and I'm not suggesting people do this, but it really ramps up serotonin. Let's say a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, Prozac, Zoloft, et cetera. The side effects of those drugs, if the dosages are too high, lack of appetite, lack of libido, kind of meh about life, then so they'll adjust the dose down. That's because those are serotonergic drugs. So
interesting stuff that the average Joe and Jill did not know, I think, 10, 20 years ago. People were taking all these stimulants, stimulant type drugs and depressant drugs, and I don't think they knew the neurological effects. They didn't know the long-term effects, especially when I was a young person. You'd hear sometimes about people taking these, and Hollywood stars and politicians, people being caught in an airport with a specific drug, these types of things. And so as this information comes out from people like Dr. Huberman, you can learn a lot about what's going on with social media and gambling and these types of things, what's going on in our neurology and biochemistry. Over to you, Jackie, for any of your thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. That's very, very potent information to hear. I think we do need to hear that, whether or not we're listening, and take it on to find out how it is actually affecting us. I think what the biggest takeaway from that, Sifu, is the concept of the break. The taking of the break. And this morning, actually last night, I decided that today I'm going to a sound therapy session, actually sound bath with my niece. And I decided that today is going to be my break day from a lot of this type of content that I usually have in my day every single day. But this is a really excellent reminder that we need to hear as consumers of this type of, let's say, energetic
Programming.
digital. Yeah, energetic programming, energetic that we're receiving. But we can take that, we can direct that ourselves. We can change that in an instant. So I love that reminder. Thank you.
So I'm going to mention your website, Jackie, earthmamaliving.com. And for people who want to find out more about Jackie, they can go there and see the Earth Mama and what she's up to. She's got a lot of cool art on her site. Sacred support for the creative, conscious, and worn-out mom. Really important type of coaching you're providing there. And nutritional coaching, intuitive art, and energy healing. Moms and kids create a delicious, holistic lifestyle so they can massively improve their whole family's health without sacrificing time, labor, or sanity. Are there any closing comments you want to add, Jackie?
Oh, thank you, Sifu, for the shout out and the reference to my site. I welcome any conversations that moms might like to have with me. Check in, and I always say that you are loved. I love to sign off on anything that I do to remind each and every one of us that we are loved and we are beautiful. And we are very important. So just thank you so much, Sifu. It was wonderful to have all of these discussions today that we talked about.
Fantastic. It was a pleasure for me, Jackie. And I'll wind down with my info. I'm Sifu Slim at sifuslim.com. Always looking, if you know of any other people who wish to share an hour conversation on my podcast. I have several books out. One that relates quite a bit to this topic today is Sedentary Nation, History of Physical Movement, talking a lot about mind, body, and spirit, what's going on when we're sedentary versus when we're moving, and combining both of those. So we've got rest and activity and movement and interaction with others. All those good things are in this book, Sedentary Nation. And I welcome your comments down below. Again, please give us a thumbs up, like, and consider subscribing. Wishing you all the best in your health, happiness, and wellness, in mind, body, and spirit. I'm Sifu. Jackie, aloha and mahalo.
Thank you so much. Aloha and mahalo.